A very good afternoon to you all. This is the Ambassador. With me, your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau. Now let me bring you the up to speed about the monkeypox, as a surge in monkeypox cases is raising alarms across Africa, with Kenya experts warning of a potential wider spread of the virus. The Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, has reported nearly 15,000 cases of monkeypox this year alone. With Kenya now facing its own break, the Ministry of Health is ramping up efforts to control the spread of this rare and viral infection. Irene Juguna with the report.
Experts are sounding their alarm as monkeypox, also known as mpox, continues to spread rapidly across Africa. This year, the Africa Center for Disease Control and Prevention has documented at least 14,957 cases of monkeypox on the continent. Kenya, which has recently confirmed its first case and is on high alert, public health experts fear that the disease could spread further throughout the region. To combat this threat, the Ministry of Health has intensified surveillance efforts in key areas, including the county's entry points like along the Busia to Mombasa Highway and the Mombasa to Taveta Road. In a bid to contain the outbreak, the government is also implementing contact tracing for those who may have come into contact with a long-distance truck driver who tested positive for the virus. This measure is part of a comprehensive strategy to curb the spread of monkeypox. According to the latest report from the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, monkeypox has now been reported in at least 15 African countries. As Kenya and the border region work to manage this outbreak, the focus remains on early detection, effective response, and public education to prevent further spread of monkeypox.
Concerns are escalating in Nigeria regarding the influence of Russia within the ongoing protest against economic hardship and the government corruption. Demonstrators in various states were spotted waving Russian flags, prompting Nigerian authorities to label the act as treasonous to the national sovereignty. The protests, which began on August 1st, have resulted in at least 13 deaths and have faced significant crackdowns from security forces. President Bola Tinubu recently convened security chiefs in Abuja and declared a curfew in northern Kaduna State, marking the sixth state to implement such measures since the protests erupted. The demonstrations are fueled by severe cost of living crisis, with the inflation reaching a 28-year high, leading a widespread discontent among the citizens. Here is more.
On Monday, President Bola Tinubu met with security chief in Abuja capital. A curfew was declared in northern Kaduna State, the sixth state to take such measure since the protests began after reporting of looting. The cost of living crisis is fueled by surging inflation at a 28-year high and government economic policies that have pushed the local currency to record low against the dollar. Tinubu on Sunday stated his government was committed to addressing citizen concerns, but he provided no plan, according to the Lagos-based SBM intelligence research firm. A few protesters were seen waving Russian flags over the weekend and again on Monday in northern Nigeria, whose population is among the worst affected. Nigerian military chief Christopher Musa said after meeting with Tinubu, the Russian flag being waved constitutes treason and would be treated as such. Pro-Russia sentiment have been growing in part of West Africa, where Moscow is increasingly welcomed by militaries that have staged coups and served ties with the West. Nigeria's Secret Service stated it has apprehended some tailors in northern Kano State, which were responsible for making Russian flags being distributed in the area. Peris Kego, GBS News.
Kenya's African Union chairmanship job bid against a boost after Djibouti Foreign Affairs Minister Mahamoud Yusuf jetted into the country on Tuesday, hours after the expiry of the current chairperson's term. Djibouti's Foreign Affairs Minister, who had a meeting with Musalia Mudavadi at his office at the railways, is now Kenya's biggest competitor and is seeking for the Africa's boss position. Davis Karani gives us the details.
Affairs Minister Mahmoud Yusuf on Tuesday visited Kenya ahead of the African Union chairmanship position elections that is scheduled to take place on the February of 2025. The position, which officially became vacant on the 6th of August, 5 p.m. East African time, has attracted 4 nations, and Djibouti's Foreign Affairs Minister's visit to Kenya is aimed to reach on a consensus agreement. According to Yusuf, who wrote on his X account, he stated, as I quote, "I came to Nairobi, which is an important stage for my campaigns, to seek advice from Ruto, who is the African champion for reforms and climate change."
Karibu.
Asante.
Yes, how are you doing?
I'm fine.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Good.
The meeting held at Mudavadi's office was attended by Kenya's Foreign Affairs Minister PS Dr. Korir Sing'oei, Odinga's chief campaigner for his AUC job bid, and Kenya has shown its determination of scooping the seat. Kenya has been lobbying Djibouti to drop the bid and back Odinga for the position, and the move by Yusuf is believed to be adherence to the clarion call by Kenya.
As you already know, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is Kenya's candidate for the chairmanship of the African Union Commission in the elections slated for February next year, that is 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, on this, we have a visionary leader to fire up the African Union to greater levels. The Right Honorable Raila is a Pan-Africanist who naturally espouses the Think Africa above all guiding principle of the AU Commission.
Mahmoud Yusuf has served IGAD as ministerial chair and African Peace and Security Council, while Odinga, who is a Pan-Africanist, has served as African Union top envoy for infrastructure, a former prime minister, and a former minister in several portfolios, and will be banking his experience to influence the continent to back his bid against the candidates from Djibouti, Madagascar and Mauritius after Somalia and Seychelles pulled out of the race. Davis Karani, GBS News, AUC bid campaigns, Nairobi.
Bangladesh president has officially dissolved parliament, paving the way for new elections. This comes after a period of intense unrest and weeks of nationwide demonstrations that led to the resignation and the fleeing of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Here is more.
The streets of Dhaka, which had been the epicenter of violent protests, now show a semblance of calm. Jubilant crowds have taken to the streets, celebrating the end of Hasina's rule. Yesterday, protesters stormed the Prime Minister's residence, looting and causing significant damage. The unrest began with a peaceful student-led movement demanding the end of a controversial quota system for government jobs. But the protests quickly escalated into a widespread uprising against Hasina and her Awami League party. With the president dissolving the parliament, all eyes are now on the upcoming elections, which will determine the future political landscape of Bangladesh.
Some more from Bangladesh, as India Foreign Minister Jai Shankar confirmed Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's arrival in Delhi after her resignation amid escalating violence and instability in the nation. Jai Shankar expressed concerns over the targeting of minorities and the safety of Indian nationals in Bangladesh, while President Shahabuddin dissolved the parliament, forming an interim government to facilitate fresh elections in the aftermath of Hasina's departure. Hasina resigned following weeks of protest over a job quota system, resulting in over 280 deaths.
As honorable members are aware, India-Bangladesh relations have been exceptionally close for many decades over many governments. Concern about recent violence and instability there is shared across the political spectrum. Since the election in January 2024, there has been considerable tension, deep divides, and growing polarization in Bangladesh politics. This underlying foundation aggravated a student agitation that started in June this year. There was growing violence, including attacks on public buildings and infrastructure, as well as traffic and rail obstruction. The violence continued through the month of July. Throughout this period, we repeatedly counseled restraint and urged that the situation be diffused through dialogue. Similar urgings were made to various political forces with whom we were in touch. The agitation at this stage coalesced around a one-point agenda, that is that the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, should step down. On 4th August, events took a very serious turn. Attacks on the police, including police stations and government installations, intensified even as overall levels of violence greatly escalated. Properties of individuals associated with the regime were torched across the country. What was particularly worrying was that minorities, their businesses and temples also came under attack at multiple locations. The full extent of this is still not clear. Sir, on 5th August, demonstrators converged in Dhaka despite the curfew. Our understanding is that after a meeting with leaders of the security establishment, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina apparently made the decision to resign. At very short notice, she requested approval to come for the moment to India. We simultaneously received a request for flight clearance from Bangladesh authorities. She arrived yesterday evening in Delhi. The situation in Bangladesh, sir, is still evolving. The Army Chief, General Waqar-uz-Zaman, addressed the nation on 5th August. He spoke about assuming responsibility and constituting an interim government. We are in close and continuous touch with the Indian community in Bangladesh through our diplomatic missions. There are an estimated 19,000 Indian nationals there, of which about 9,000 are students. The bulk of the students, however, have already returned to India in the month of July at the advice of the High Commission. In terms of our diplomatic presence, in addition to the High Commission in Dhaka, we have assistant High Commissions in Chittagong, Rajshahi, Khulna, and Sylhet. It is our expectation that the host government will provide the required security protection for these establishments. We look forward to their normal functioning once the situation stabilizes. Chairman, sir, we are also monitoring the situation with regard to the status of minorities. There are reports of initiatives by various groups and organizations to ensure their protection and well-being. We welcome that, but will naturally remain deeply concerned till law and order is visibly restored. Our border guarding forces have also been instructed to be exceptionally alert in view of this complex situation. In the last 24 hours, we have also been in regular touch with the authorities in Dhaka. This is the situation as of now. Understanding and support of the
We'll keep you more updated on the situation as it keeps evolving. Now moving on to Venezuela. Massive protests erupted in Venezuela following allegations of electoral fraud in the recent presidential election. Clashes between demonstrators and security forces have turned violent, with reports of casualties and hundreds of arrests. The protests began on July 29th, just a day before after the government controlled the National Electoral Council, the CNE, which declared incumbent President Nicolas Maduro the winner of the July 28th vote. Here is more.
Hoy 29 de julio nos convoca el acto de proclamación del presidente de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela, electo por la voluntad del pueblo soberano, ciudadano Nicolás Maduro Moro, conforme a las disposiciones constitucionales y legales que rigen los procesos electorales. Una jornada histórica. Vencer al fascismo, a los demonios, a las demonias, con la fuerza de Cristo, de Bolívar y de Chávez, Han hecho un gran trabajo de recorrer el país.
And that international news brings us to our very first break. We have more lined up for you shortly after the break. Topics you can't afford to miss. Don't move an inch. We'll be right back with even more as you stay tuned with us.
We have newly-wedded couples in the house. They are going to tell us about their journey.
So for me, mimi nilikuwa msumbufu since I was young. So my mom was tough on me. Kabisa.
So for me, I feel wazazi wangu wote walikuwa so tough, walikuwa so strict. Hakukuwa na the softer one, like walikuwa kimoja.
After high school sasa unajua mimi nilikuwa nimeambiwa kuna ka college fulani mahali utaenda usome. But for me nilikuwa najua acha niende nitafute tu dem. Juu sana shamba za shule.
Of course ingeenda CU, nilikuwa naenda enter. So hizo ndio vitu mbili zinilivutia sana kuja IYF.
Now mmekutana hivyo. Mlijua itakuja kuwa hivi ama what happened after that?
Personally nilikuwa nimeshachoka na story na dating na relationship. Nilikuwa nataka kukuwa anti mado.
Pesa. Hii video imeweza kutrend sana. Ningependa sana ichezwe. At least tuanzie from there.
Everywhere, GBS.
Back and thank you for staying on board with us. You are watching The Ambassador GBS Global and we are glad to have you join us today. Now moving on, in a dramatic turn of events for the 2024 United States presidential race, Kamala Harris has solidified her position as the Democratic nominee following a landslide delegate vote. She has also selected Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz as her vice presidential running mate, through her preparing the expected intensify the battle with Trump's ticket as both sides gear up for a highly competitive election season. Joy Kuria with a full report.
Kamala Harris has officially secured the Democratic nomination with 99% of delegates casting their ballot in her favor after a 5-day online voting period. The party will formally certify the vote and celebrate at their convention later this month in Chicago. Harris is poised to maintain the core themes of Biden administration such as democracy, gun violence prevention, and abortion rights. Her vice president, Minnesota government Tim Walz, is set to join her in rallying key battleground states. Walz, who has a reputation in reconnecting with rural white voters, could bolster Harris' appeal among working class and moderate voters.
She believes in the opportunity for every single person to join the middle class. She believes in the promise of America. We just got to fight. We just got to fight. Because as soon-to-be President Harris says, when we fight, we win!
As the campaign heats up, both Harris and Vance are intensifying their efforts. Harris and Walz are gearing up to make their case in swing states, while Vance plans to focus on economic and immigration issues. Reporting from GBS News, Joy Kuria.
Ilya Yashin, a prominent Russian opposition figure who was released in the East-West prisoner swap, in a live stream, thanked supporters vowing to continue opposing Russia's war in Ukraine. Yashin criticized leaving 2 dissidents behind, warning that Putin won't stop even if he won in Ukraine. He labeled his release as unlawful expulsion but remained committed to fighting for democracy even from abroad.
During one of those short visits, the Russian representative conveyed greeting from the president to us. He said that authorities were doing everything possible to free us. This was, of course, a great support. I have received about 30,000 letters and postcards from you. I'm sure there are a lot of people here right now who wrote me letters, sent me postcards. And you have no idea how important that is and how empowering it was. It was literally my source of strength, because not a single day in prison did I feel abandoned, forgotten, or alone. And I always knew that there was a huge number of people behind me who worried about me. supported me or sympathized and who are not indifferent to my fate.
And thousands were witnessed gathering in Hiroshima on Tuesday for a lantern ceremony commemorating the 79th anniversary of the 1945 atomic bombing. The ceremony marked the United States atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which killed over 200,000 people. Colorful lanterns with the messages of peace were floating down the Motosayu River, accompanied by music, an annual event that has taken place since 1947, reminding the world of the devastating impact of nuclear weapons and the need for peace.
I wish the world is peace for everyone.
Crazy troll.
The Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with Australian leaders Penny Wong and Richard Marles for the annual US-Australian AUSMIN talks in Annapolis on Tuesday. Key topics included China's coercive behavior, Middle East tensions, and the AUKUS partnership, which involves the United States and the United Kingdom assistance for Australia's nuclear-powered submarines. A joint statement criticized China's actions in South China Sea, underlining the need for open communication to avoid miscalculations. The talks also reaffirmed the strong US-Australian alliance in addressing security and diplomatic issues, especially in the Indo-Pacific region. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, has terminated 9 staff members for their potential involvement in the October 7th attacks on Israel, which killed over 1,200 people. This action follows increased scrutiny and the withdrawal of support from at least 15 countries. The ongoing conflict has resulted in significant casualties, with reports of at least 39,000 Palestinian deaths. Since the violence erupted, UN Deputy Spokesperson Farhan Haq announced this decision, citing the evidence from the UN Office of Oversight Services. And though one case lacked evidence, nonetheless other dismissals were made to protect the agency's integrity.
Involved in the attacks. In one case, no evidence was obtained by OIOS to support the allegations of the staff members' involvement, while in 9 other cases, the evidence obtained by OIOS was insufficient to support the staff members' involvement. In respect of the remaining 9 cases, the evidence obtained by OIOS indicated that the UNRWA staff members may have been involved in the armed attacks of the 7th of October 2023. The employment of these individuals will be terminated in the interests of the agency. I don't have specific information about the specific allegations.
More on the Gaza war, as the United States Secretary of Government Antony Blinken has called for a ceasefire in Gaza, urging all parties to ease tensions. His plea comes within the heightened conflict following the death of the Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and the Hezbollah commander, that is Fuad Shuk. Blinken underlined that escalation would only lead to a more violence and insecurity. The United States is pushing for a ceasefire proposal involving a phased approach to end the hostilities and facilitate humanitarian aid. Blinken's message underscored the urgency of breaking the cycle of violence through unified pressure of Hamas to accept the ceasefire terms. Since October 7th, fighting has resulted in over 1,139 deaths in Israel and at least 39,000 Palestinian casualties in Gaza.
Refrain from escalation. All parties must take steps to ease tensions. Escalation is not in anyone's interests. It will only lead to more conflict, more violence, more insecurity. It's also critical that we break this cycle by reaching a ceasefire in Gaza.
And that international news brings us to the end of our ambassador, GBS Global. It's been wonderful having you on board, joining us to the end. Here at the Ambassador, where we continue to bring you the latest updates and the global developments as you keep it locked with us. Have been your Ambassador, Jennifer Macau, and I'm looking forward to meeting you here at the Ambassador tomorrow, same time, same place, at 1 p.m. I wish you all the most beautiful and a wonderful afternoon. Keep it safe and see you all tomorrow.